I'm not sure if I thought I stopped that recording. So if you got me drinking my coffee, there's just another example of me not being perfect. Okay. So we talked about seasons. There are seasons in life. For everything, there's a season. And we're all pretty familiar with this. But let's look at this in Ecclesiastes. There is a set time for everything. Life is tough, y'all. It is. Being a Christian in today's world is challenging. Even in the U.S., we do have it better than a lot of other countries, but it has been tough. There has been a lot of things coming against Christians these past few years. We live in the culture of the instant. Everything is instant. Everything is done right away. Microwave. You got question for something, all you have to do is Google it. Ask Siri, okay? And you will get the answer to the question. You need a problem solved, Siri will do it. You need a paper written, you can go have AI do it. Everything is instant and without work, okay? And it's all done right now. But let me tell you, that is not how God works. Can he? Absolutely. But most of the time, not. He has certain times that things need to happen. He has a set time for everything to occur. So let's look at this in Ecclesiastes. Everything has its time. We're going to start here at chapter 3. I think it's the whole chapter. So to everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born. Got a grandbaby coming, so a time to be born and a time to die. And I just lost my dad. So there are set times for those things, okay? There is a time to plant. It's almost springtime. We're going to be planting soon. But there is also a time to harvest, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted. If you pluck a plant up too soon, you're not going to reap the fruit of that plant. You have to pluck it up at the right time, okay? There is a time to kill. There is time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. So there's a time to break relationships. There is. There's a time that we sometimes need to separate from people and love them from a distance, and that is okay. But there's also a time to build up and to build those relationships. There is a time to weep, a time to laugh, thank goodness. There's time to mourn, a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to gain, but there is also a time to lose. And that is something in today's society we really need to purposefully teach our children how to win and how to lose. Because everyone is going to experience that in life, and we need to understand that and learn how to do so with grace. A time to keep things and a time to throw away. A time to tear, a time to sow. There is a time to keep silence, and this is the one I struggle with. I am learning to be much quieter, to listen more, and to say less. But there is also a time to speak and a time to speak up. There's a time to love, and there's even a time to hate. Now, does that mean we hate Christian brothers? No. There is a time of war. There is a time of peace. What profit has the worker from that in which he labors? I have seen the God-given tasks with which the sons of men are to be occupied. Travail means job, exercised through a means, bruised, afflicted, oppressed, and humbled. Okay, so labor here means travail. Okay, but God has made everything beautiful in its time. I lost my father to lung cancer this just a few months ago, and while it was hard, and it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to witness, the end of that relationship that God gave us was beautiful. We did not have a great relationship in life. He was an alcoholic. He was distant. He was never there for me. But those last few years, God gave him grace. I was able to care for him, and we were able to um, come to a state of forgiveness. And I was prepared and ready to be able to say goodbye. And honestly, I look back and think what a beautiful thing it was that God allowed me to be there for him in his last days and to show him the grace of God, because he wasn't there for me. And in the natural flesh, um, I would not want to be there for them. And my siblings, in some ways, also struggled with that. They resented helping, even though he was never there for us. He didn't come to my wedding. He didn't go to my high school graduation. He did make some changes as he went through life, but not what most people have, or I say most, many people have in a relationship. But God redeemed the time, gave Dad grace, that unmerited favor. He didn't deserve it, but God loved him and gave him that grace. And he made that a beautiful time. He has put eternity in their hearts. Let me start back. He has made everything beautiful in his time. He has put eternity in their hearts, except that no one can find out the work that God does from beginning to end. We think we can predict what's going to happen, but we can't. I know that nothing is better for them than to rejoice and to do good in their lives, and also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is the gift of God. So it is a gift of God for us to learn to be content in all things. In all things, I have learned to be content. Okay. We should be content with the things that God has given us in our lives and learn to be happy in all situations and just know that we are fulfilling the call that he has in our life, and not worry about the end results, not worry about tomorrow, just to live in the day, do good in our life, work hard, and enjoy. Okay? Because God, and sometimes things don't look this way, y'all, but he does. God shall judge the righteous, but he shall also judge the wicked. For there is a time there for every purpose and every work. So your work has a place and it has a time. You may not see it for years. I kept asking God, why am I not in ministry? I thought I was called to ministry. Why am I not in ministry? And lo and behold, I look back now and I realized I was. Okay. Now, maybe when the kids were younger, I did do a lot of other things. We did vacation Bible school. I taught Sunday school, and that was my ministry at the time. But the whole plan for my life in these days and times is totally different than what I thought it was supposed to be. But it's a good thing. Okay. There is a time for this, a purpose for this. So there is an appointed time, a due set opportune time for God's promises to come to fruition, to come to pass in our lives. And so we pray for that and we believe for answers. We have faith, right? And our faith is that substance of the things hoped for. It is very much like a pregnancy. Pregnancy has a beginning point, but in the beginning, you don't see anything. Yet we know that there is something there. The baby is real, just like our faith is the substance, the proof, the material for something real coming in. Okay. That baby just needs to grow, right? Our faith, the dream, whatever it is God has called us to do, has to grow. But pregnancy also has an expected end, an expected date, a due date. In Galatians 4:4, it says, "But when the fullness of time has come, God sent forth his son." So it came at a certain point, at due opportune time. There was a specific time for this to happen. So at the right time, a baby is born, right? A baby is born when it's supposed to be. We have due dates, but they're never exactly correct. Even if they are correct, the baby is going to come when the baby is supposed to come. And of course, we know sometimes the babies come too early, this or that, but there is an appointed time. Remember, an appointed time to be born and an appointed time to die. We have to be patient, knowing that the expected end will come and that we do not always know the day. We don't. I did not know in 2008 we would be taking in, excuse me, 4 kids in 2004. And here we are in 2005 on the 5th. The baby needs to grow and develop into a mature and healthy baby to be delivered at the right time. And if it's not born at the right time, if it is born too early, there are problems. It is not necessarily healthy. We don't always, though, know when the right time is. Okay. When I was having my second child, I ran late with my first. Actually, I ran late with all 3, but I was 2 weeks late with my first when they induced me. And so I was praying for him to be born. A friend said, "Hey, why don't you pray for him to be born early?" I prayed for mine to be born early, and he was a month early. And I was like, well, yeah, but he was also jaundiced and had problems. I don't want him born before he's ready, but I want him to be born at the perfect time. I don't want to go late. And I thought the perfect time was to not have him late. Okay. And so I had been praying for the duration of the pregnancy for him to be born at the right time. Okay. Not premature, because that usually means there is a problem. The baby is not ready to handle life away from the womb. That's really important to think about. When God has a call on our life, we have to grow and develop and mature in order to be able to do what he is calling us to do. I could not have handled 5 extra children 15 years ago. We couldn't have done it. We had other things going on in our lives that we had to take care of, that we had to prioritize. But at the right time, at the set opportune time, in due time, it came to pass. Okay. When it is time for that vision that God has to be born. Okay. So it is the same way with us. It's the same with pregnancy. Okay. We want everything immediately, but things have to grow and develop and mature. God knows exactly when things need to happen. Even when it's the answer to a prayer that we have, he knows when we need that answer. He knows when we need to reap. I have reaped a harvest in the past year, and it's not even really for me. It's really been more for the kids. But I sowed a lot of seed over the years, giving and giving and giving. And was it perfect? Absolutely not. But I did. I tried. And I didn't really pay much attention to it, but I didn't really receive. Now, it is more blessed to give than it is to receive. So you receive a blessing during the giving. Okay, you do receive that blessing. But when we took in these kids, we have received so much help. It is just absolutely unreal. God knew we were going to need to call on those debts, okay, that we were going to need help in return. And so we spent all these years sowing and sowing and sowing, and then we were reaping. There are times when I could not even think to myself, I need such and such, Lord, can you send it? I didn't even have time to have that thought occur. Somebody would call me and say, "Hey, I've got such and such. Do you think that would help?" Or, "Hey, can I go pick such and such child up for you this week?" And you'd be like, "Yes, thank God, yes, yes." Or clothes, food. It has just been unreal. I wish I had written down all the ways that God has sent help, which is a whole other message on the equipping and how whom God calls, he equips. It's not always the equipping in us. Sometimes it's equipping through other people, but is again a whole other message. But he has allowed us to reap a harvest during this time when it was truly the most needed. Now, had you asked me when my little kids were young if we needed this or that? Absolutely. But do we need it so much more now? Absolutely. Okay, so God knows when we need it. The proper time, due time, is almost never when we think it is. And it's almost never going to happen how we think the answer needs to come. His ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. And he knows best. He sees everything. So back to the analogy of a pregnancy. Pregnancy is uncomfortable. At first you've got morning sickness a lot of times to deal with, you've got heartburn, you can't bend over, you get nauseous, you can't sleep well, you can't touch your toes, you can't tie your shoes. We can be really emotional. And you know what's even harder? Labor. Labor is hard. Delivering a baby is difficult. If you have experienced labor without medication, you can understand that. You can relate. Even if you've had some, you've probably felt enough labor pains to realize it's difficult. Okay. My firstborn took 24 hours to deliver him up, and that is 24 hours of hard labor. It was tough, but it was the only way to get him here. So a lot of times we have to travail. It's hard. We get tired. We get weary, but we have to push through at the right time. And people talk a lot about how it's darkest before the dawn. That's really true. The devil really, really fights us right before something big is going to happen. It really is hard. The hardest time is right before something comes. So whether it's an answer to prayer, all these things I'm talking about, I'm talking about the call in your life, but it's also just even relating to praying. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, about not getting weary when you prayed for something, because sometimes it takes years. It's hard labor. You have to work at it, okay? Not that we earn our salvation, not that we earn the answers, because Christ paid for all of that on the cross. But it is tough. It's hard. It's hard on our flesh, okay? So trials and tribulations are going to come, and we are uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable to go through. They're hard to endure. Labor is tough, but in the end, when that baby gets here, there is nothing more joyous and more exciting, nothing more fulfilling than having that baby, right? It's so worth enduring. So it is with the answers to our prayers, or fulfilling the call that God has on our life. Working through that just makes it all the more sweet. Okay. So back to my middle child. I wanted him to come at the right time. I wanted him to be mature and ready, and that is what I prayed for. But what I thought was the right time and what the right time was were not the same. God knew better. So I prayed and prayed. My oldest child was 18 months old, 17 and a half really, but almost 18 months. And it was time to have number two. My mother was going to come and stay with me and help. And I was almost a week late, and she could kind of be difficult. And I thought that the right time would be for me to have my son before she got here. She lived about 4 hours away, and I thought, I need to have him, and then she'll be here after he's born to help me. But again, you know what? My focus was on myself, and that's not where it needed to be. That is so often the time for us, is it not? We think about ourselves. We're not thinking about somebody else. And what I needed to realize, and I was young, I didn't know, but what I needed to be thinking about was my oldest son. He needed her to be there to be with him during labor. I needed my husband to be with me in the delivery room, and she needed to be there for my firstborn son, because he was too little to understand. He didn't understand what was going on. And so God knew better than I did. And so I tried to induce myself. I took castor oil and was walking, and that did bring on some labor pains. Okay, we can try to artificially do things before God has called and set for them to be done. We can make things happen, but it just doesn't always work. It didn't cause me to actually have him. Okay, he wouldn't come. But as soon as she got into town, true labor started. Okay. Funny, right? Not a coincidence. So what I didn't realize is that was my older son needed my mom there to give him comfort and to be with him. And God knew that, and he knew, and he caused my son to come at the perfect time. So God knows when the fullness of time has come. He knows when that due time, that due season is to answer your prayer or to fulfill whatever it is he has called you to do in your life. So just a little bit more on those trials and tribulations and those afflictions. We well, let's look at the scripture first. So James 1, 2 through 4. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. That's a word right there that God has been working on in my life, is patience. Let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. There are so many things that are done throughout this period of waiting time, but one of the most important is patience, and patience having its perfect work, so that we may be perfect and complete. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. Does that even mean that you're 100% perfect? No. Let's break this down and look at what this means, what the translation would really mean. Let's dig into this a little bit. So, trials test our religion and our faith, and the man who stands in them proves his religion and faith genuine. That comes from the Dake Reference Bible. Proves it not only to other people out there, because it does. It is a testimony to other people when they see you go through a test and a trial and you come through and you are still standing. People are watching. I promise you, people are watching. But it also grows our faith. It proves it to us as well. That's even more so than anything. It proves it to us and builds our faith. Trials in this life are what make us strong and help us to grow and mature in the Lord. This is why we are to consider it a joy to go through trials and testing. Now, I'm going to tell you, the last year, actually year before last, and last year, the last couple of years, have been a trial. And I have had grief like I haven't ever had to go through before. And this may sound kind of silly to some people, but I raised a horse from a baby. She was my dream horse. She was everything to me. And we had worked really hard to get through some trials and difficulties just with that. And we were working through, and I was about ready to show her, and I lost her. And she broke her leg, and I was devastated. That was the closest thing to losing a child that I think I could experience without it actually being a child. She was my baby. I raised her from a child. Horses aren't pets, they're partners when you ride. And she was truly becoming my partner at the time, and she was difficult. We had to work hard, and I just lost it all. And then I had to have a knee replacement. And my dad had lung cancer. I care for both of my parents, and I'm gonna tell you, there's been some trying times trying to get through. When one time one of them broke, my dad broke his hip. 3 months later, mom broke hers. I have spent so much time in the emergency rooms, and going through and watching my dad suffer with lung cancer. It was awful. It was horrible. Now God gave me wonderful things out of that, beautiful things out of those ashes. He turned it to beautiful, but they were tough. And during that, was I sitting there, I've got joy? No, it was tough. And I was able to hold on to the Lord, yes. But those things help to produce maturity in the Christian. And I can say that going through those trials, I have learned to let go of a lot of things. I have been changed drastically. I spoke earlier about learning to be quiet and to not speak so much. I've always been one that probably talks too much. I don't keep secrets. I tell everything more than I probably should. I have had to let go of certain relationships in the past 4 or 5 years. That was just so hard to let go of. But I have finally come to the point in my life that I'm going to do what I feel is right with God, and I don't really care what anybody else thinks. And that's because of these trials. It's because God has used those to build my character to the point that I know that He is going to get us through. It has been a daunting task to take on 5 children at my age. I'm going to be a grandmother, but I could have been a grandmother for a very long time now. I'm well into my 50s. My husband is well into his 50s, and it's a daunting task to take on 5 children from the ages when we started 6. So it was 6 at the time, 7 now to 17. Okay, 5 kids. That's daunting. But I know I'm not the one doing it. God is doing it. I can't do it. I can't possibly do it, but God can do it. God can and will and has sent help. He has sent everything we have needed. He has provided it. And I can just say, I don't know how I'm going to do it. But you know what? I know God is going to do it. I know He can. And I know He's got it under control. And that has come through trials and afflictions and temptations. Okay. A trial, trying here means to test or to prove. Okay. Especially in the context when we're talking about faith or character. So it is a trial designed to reveal our true nature, particularly our faith. So the heart is deceitful above all things. We deceive ourselves. We don't really see our true heart motives. And I want to tell you, if you really want to see your heart and know your heart, ask God to show you, but you better be prepared, because I'm going to tell you, it's not pretty. But thank goodness, thank the Lord, He is bigger than our heart. Okay, that's a whole other Bible study there in and of itself. But our trial is designed to show us what we are made of, our true nature. It's also designed to produce perseverance and spiritual maturity in our life. Okay. It's often said in the world that you can't change what you don't acknowledge, and that is definitely true spiritually. If you don't know what's in your heart, you can't let your heart become more like Christ. If you don't know what's your flesh is capable of, how are you going to keep it and keep it in shape and put your flesh under and let the Spirit live through you? We've got to know what we're made of, okay? And honestly, even more importantly, we've got to know what God's made of, and that He is there and He can do it, okay? So if we're not aware, if we are lacking in an area, and we are all lacking in some way or another, we can't allow God to work in that area and to fill up that area if we're full of ourselves there, okay? So we got to let God do that. So what is the goal here? Why do Christians have to go through trials? Well, it's to make us into mature Christians. Patience here is referring to endurance and steadfastness, to being strong, standing in the difficulties of life. That is something that is lacking in today's society. People want to bail immediately. Patience is also a patient waiting for. That's what endurance means. Or to remain under, or to endure. Okay, really means endure. So we are to hold on to our faith despite the cares of the world and the challenges in life. This becomes a witness for other people. Perfect does not mean without flaw. We wrestle with our man of flesh, and we often fail to walk in the Spirit. And what a joy it is when we actually do walk in the Spirit. But this here doesn't mean to be perfect. It means maturity, to be a mature Christian in your character. It means developing that, okay? To become fully developed in character and in faith. So we grow our faith and our godly character with every trial we endure. This is what helps us to mature as a Christian. Not only does this act as a witness to others, but it also proves to ourselves that God is faithful and He is able to do it, and it builds our faith.